All right, guys, my name is Sarah, and welcome to Apologetics with Dr. Varma. Today, we're going to be going over the book My Name is Asher Lev, and it is by Chaim Potok, just in case you didn't read it, which I'm sure everybody has. So I actually really enjoyed this book. One of the tensions that I really enjoyed was the tension between just religiosity and the Jewishness and art, and how those were kind of contradictory throughout the book. So that's one of the tensions that we'll be talking about. But first, there's a lot of different tensions that I'm going to address throughout this presentation. So the first one actually is going to be between religion and art. So in the story, Asher, he was a pious Jew, but he also was an artist. And this caused a lot of problems. So in his early life, when he was younger, he really focused on the art aspect, and he really neglected a lot of the Jewish aspects of his day. So while he was still a Jew, and he would say that he was a Jew, he didn't really do well in school. He didn't really care to learn about the Talmud and the different aspects of the Jewish culture. And instead, he was just engulfed in this art. So he would, in school, when they were learning, he would just be overcome by it and would just draw what he wanted to draw, and it wouldn't really have anything to do with what they were learning, except for one time he would draw something that had to do with this, or one time he actually did draw something that had to do with the school, and he drew the mashpia really, like, not suggestively, that's not the correct word, but he drew the mashpia sorry, actually it wasn't the mashpia, it was the Rebbe. So he drew the Rebbe in the Rebbe's face in the Shamash, and when his father asked him what he was doing, he's like, I don't know. It just kind of happened, and it overcame him, and that's just what he ended up drawing. And that was not acceptable, really, to the Jewish people. That was very shameful. And so that kind of started the trajectory between this religion and art, and how the art took over the religion, and it really impacted him. And so this tension kind of gets fleshed out through the rest of the book. And as there becomes a point where he starts to think, okay, yeah, I should be studying the religion. I should be studying the Jewish people. I should be studying the Jewish culture. So he does start studying that. But as he studies that, he gets more and more and more into the art. And so this kind of conflict between the Jewishness here and the art increases throughout the book. And so as the book goes on, and he's continuing in these religious customs and in these Jewish customs, and he's also increasing in his artist ability, he meets Jacob Kahn and his friend Schaefer, and together they want to kind of make him into a great artist, which is great, but along the way they're asking him to draw things that are very against what the Jewish culture believes. So he was drawing pictures of nudes, and he was very uncomfortable with that, but he wanted to be an artist, and they explained it to him that this was kind of what every artist did, and it was very much a growth experience to be able to draw these nudes, and it was the truth of the art. And so he drew them, and his parents were very upset because they felt like he was going against the very religion that he was brought up with. And so then this culminated, all along the story, this culminated into the crucifixion. And the crucifixion was obviously against what the Jews believed, because the crucifixion talked a lot about, or the crucifixion does talk a lot about Christ, and they didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. So this was way against what they were thinking. And in this crucifixion, he put his mother on the cross, but he did it to show his anguish and the truth of the art, while as his father and mother took it as, you're going against the very religion that we have brought you up with. And so eventually his love for the arts kind of supersedes or surpasses that of his religious abilities or religious experiences. So that's kind of the first thing that I saw to be a really big theme throughout the book. So the next one was describe the continuing aspect of the Jewish relationship to the Rebbe. So there's this relationship to the Rebbe, and his parents felt it, his grandparents felt it, the great-grandparents felt it, and it was just this continuing aspect. The great-grandparents worked kind of for the Rebbe. They were in with him. His grandparents were in with him. His parents were in with him. And so following that, his father kind of felt like he should be in with him. He should be working for the Rebbe. And there was a point in the book where his father was like, I'm doing all this work for the Rebbe, and here you are just sitting there drawing paintings. And what is that? And what is that going to benefit the Jewish people? And he really sacrificed, his father did, he really sacrificed a lot of his life for the Jewish people. And he went over to the Ladover Jews and Ladov and was trying to build them up and create schools for them so that they could learn the Jewish religions and the Jewish customs. And then his little son is here across the world just doing art. And so that was really, really difficult on the father. And that kind of made me think of, my mom's a teacher, I'm a teacher, my grandparents weren't teachers, not that I know of at least. And they're dead now, so I can't really ask them. But I didn't become a teacher because my mom was a teacher, and obviously she would have been fine if I would have chosen a different occupation. But it just kind of makes me think of how parents feel when they've done something, their parents done something, their grandparents did the same thing, and all of a sudden their children want to do something different and kind of make a stand over here and are kind of out there while everyone else is doing kind of the same thing. And the shame that the father must have felt in that instance where the son was kind of doing his own thing and going all the way out here while he was trying to really help the Jews and sacrifice himself for them. So there's this kind of continuing aspect of the relationship to the Rebbe, and it's disrupted with Asher because he decides, I'm going to just do something else. I'm going to do art. And this art passion of his is so, encompasses his mind, encompasses his soul. So his father sees it as of the devil because it's just so against what they've always done, as well as the contrast with the religion and art that I was discussing earlier. When he's so encompassing with the art, that's like what he does. He's neglecting his studies. His father's like, how can this be of the Lord, the Olam? This cannot be. This has to be the Sitra Akra, and that has to be of the devil, because something that's taking up all of your time and that is making you do things that are contrary to the Torah, contrary to the Jewish tradition, can't be of the Lord. So the third theme that I thought of was the relationship between Jacob Kahn or that I want to discuss, and the Rebbe and the tension there. So Jacob Kahn wasn't really a religious Jew, but he did have respect for the Rebbe. And so the Rebbe had asked him to point him or make his art point kind of to the Torah and point in that direction and not to disrespect all of that. And so at first, Jacob Kahn kind of wanted to see, okay, is Asher really into the Jewish religion or is he more into art? How about you just be like this, do this, or be a carpenter, or do something else? He wanted to test him to see if his passion was really in painting. And through all of that, he saw, wow, this boy, he loves painting. But he knew that to make him a good painter, or he at least thought that to make him a good painter, he would have to show him the nudes, show him the crucifixions, because those were beautiful works of art, and they really developed him in his painting career. And without those works, he might have not have been as developed in what he was doing. And so although Jacob Kahn, I don't think explicitly wanted to go against the Rebbe, it was kind of either that or sacrifice the painting career of Asher. And so he really worked with Asher And they did end up doing the nudes painting, obviously, and the crucifixions, just because that helped him and that made him the painter that he was. And so, even though Jacob Khan had respect for the Rebbe, that respect ultimately had to be sacrificed, according to Jacob Khan, for the greater good of Asher, so that he could really develop in his painting abilities. So I just thought that was a super interesting aspect of it all. So the next aspect that I kind of saw was the transition of art as aspirational compared to art as truth. So in the beginning of the book, Asher's mom was really sick, and Asher's mom actually would always ask him, "Draw me pretty things, Asher, draw me pretty things, make the world beautiful." And she kind of saw that the world was not a beautiful place. Her brother was killed from doing work with the Rebbe, and so she wanted him to make beautiful art. And he did make some beautiful art, and he would always be like, "Look at Mom, I finally made something beautiful. Isn't this beautiful?" And he would do that to try to make the world a better place and try to make his mom healed from her diseases, but ultimately that didn't really help her. She just kind of was healed on her own over time, and from seeing that she could continue the work that her brother kind of left off. So that kind of also goes back to the continuing aspect with the relationship to the Rebbe, because she continued in that work that her brother-in-law or her brother left off of, in a way. And so that was really important to her, and that was kind of what helped to heal her. So ultimately it wasn't contributed to Asher's making of beautiful things, but Asher still wanted to make the beautiful things because he was young and he thought that that would make the world a better place, that would make his mom better. But then he saw that it wasn't making his mom better, and his mom was still sick even after she made all these pretty paintings. And so when he met Jacob Khan, he wanted him to draw paintings that corresponded to the truth. So even though Asher's paintings were beautiful and they were aspirational, that they're how he wanted to see the world and how he wanted the world to be, it wasn't exactly truth, because it was a false vision of how the world was. And so he started to draw things that were true, and he kind of started to draw, actually this is even before he met Jacob Khan, but he started to draw things that accorded with reality. So like with Stalin, when Stalin died, in order to process that, he would draw pictures of Stalin over and over again. And also he would draw a lot of pictures of the Rebbe, because the Rebbe wanted his father to move to Vienna to help, because now that Stalin was dead, there was a ripe harvest that he could harvest there for the Jews. So the Rebbe wanted Asher's father to go there and to help them, but Asher didn't want to go. And so in order to process these emotions of truth and his true emotions, he would draw Stalin and he would draw the Rebbe. And when he would draw the Rebbe, it wouldn't be a nice, kind vision of the Rebbe. It would be a very distorted view of the Rebbe, because he didn't want to go, and he was reflecting those wishes and through his paintings. And so when his father left, he drew many pictures of his father just to remember him and remember what he was doing and to remember that vision of truth that he had of him. And so the reason why Khan wanted him to draw when he had a gallery, Khan wanted him to draw or keep the pictures of the nude in the gallery. And the reason why Khan wanted him to do that is because that was the truth. That was part of who he was as a painter, and that those pictures of the nudes that he drew or that he painted were a part of what he was doing then and how he developed as a painter. So if he would have left those pictures out or those paintings out, it would have been kind of a lie, because it would have shown, here, this is what I can do, and these are the lines that I can make and the beauty that I can make from the paintings. But it really neglected part of the aspect of what made him such a great painter and the process that it took to get there. So that's part of the reason why that Jacob Khan wanted him to leave those paintings in. And ultimately for the gallery, the crucifixions, they were beautiful paintings because they held the truth in a way, because because technically they didn't hold the truth of his beliefs, because he didn't really believe in the Christ, obviously, that Christ was the Messiah, because he was Jewish, but they held the truth because it had his mom on the cross, and his dad and him were kind of by there, and just to show the anguish that he felt when his mom, or that his mom felt when he left all the time, and his father was gone doing work for the Rebbe, and he could remember how when her brother was doing the work for the Rebbe, how he died from that work, and it was just anguish because she never knew whether whether Asher's father would come home. And so it was just very difficult on her. And so he drew this to accord for the truth of the anguish that she felt when him and his father were gone. And it was beautiful because it accorded to that truth. So when they then went and they saw this painting, though it was against their very beliefs, so they were very upset about it. But it was definitely not an aspirational painting of what he wanted it to be. It was very much, this is the truth, and I have to paint the truth. So even if it's going to be upsetting to you, or I just still want to testify to the truth. So the next one that I had was the transformation of the father from being against art. So in the beginning, the father was very against art. He saw it from the Sitra Achra. But as he saw his son painting the beautiful things, and his son being kind of becoming his own person and being this Asher Lev, this sensational painter, and as he saw that the paintings weren't exactly against the Torah, he kind of was drawn into the art. He didn't think it was from the Sitra Achra anymore. He didn't think it was necessarily holy or anything to that extent, but he didn't think it was as bad as it could have been until the crucifixion. And he actually went and saw the crucifixion in the gallery, and he's like, okay, this cannot happen anymore. This is totally and completely against what we believe. So it was very upsetting to him. So then the next one was the sense of rootedness that he kind of felt, but he still had growth in art. So when his father went to Vienna, part of the reason that he didn't want to go was that he felt such a rootedness to the people and the community and the places around him. And he was drawing beautiful pictures of his street, and he had met a gentleman from Syria named Udall Krinsky, and Udall Krinsky and him were just really good friends, and he would lose all those people, so he wanted to stay there. But then as his art began to develop, and as he really started to love his art and wanted to see his art succeed, he eventually did leave those people and the places because his art was such a passion for him, and so that it kind of superseded anything else that he would want to do. So the last kind of theme that I had found was that we should stand for truth even when people oppress us. So, and this theme kind of compares to Asher, and Asher really stood for the truth. He loved art, and he wouldn't let anybody or anything come in the way of that. So when his father kind of wanted to come in the way of that, and he did stop for a little bit, but he's like, this is who I am. I am an artist, and I have to paint. So he would paint, and he would paint things that were true, and eventually, at the very end of the book, he had to leave his own people and the people around him and the people that he loved because he had drawn the crucifixion, and that was so against the beliefs, and that just kind of destroyed everybody in the community, so much so that he had to move away from all of that. And he was willing to do that because he loved his art more than really anything else that he had loved. And so this leads me to my thesis, and that's that art can be used either to advance a witness or to damage a witness. And we really see this in the book of Asher Lev, and how it was very damaging to his witness. It was damaging. They had thought that he was like totally against the Jews and against what they believed, and it damaged his witness, and people were looking at him differently because of what he was doing, and so that's why he eventually had to leave. But you could also be an artist, and it could help to support you, because when you're looking at art, and it even showed this in the book, just the beauty of it and how beautiful his art was. I mean, it was stunning art, and it impressed people, and it changed their heart in such a way that words couldn't. I mean, he could say those words, "Oh, my mom was in anguish," but when he drew her on the cross, people really saw that anguish and could sympathize with it, and they were affected in such a way that words couldn't be affected with. So it just really shows that art can be used to advance a witness or damage a witness. And we can kind of see that even in our art today. There's some beautiful paintings and some that are done by Christian people that have shown like that have attempted to illustrate, like the Lord's Supper painting, how they kind of communicated during that. And if you study that painting, you can find and be impacted in a way that you couldn't just from reading it. The story kind of comes alive, and that's true with a lot of art forms today, is that they help the story come alive from just this, here's my interpretation, from reading it to this is what I'm seeing, and I can sympathize with it and empathize and learn more about it, and just the importance of that. And so, but you could also be used to damage a witness. And many art today is that when we're making art and illustrating art that is against what we believe just to illustrate a point, it can kind of damage our reputation, and people can think, oh, I thought she was a Christian, why is she doing this kind of art form or that kind of art form that seems to be kind of against what she believes? And so we just have to be careful with our art that it can magnify Christ and that it draws people closer to Christ, compared to put a stumbling block between what we say we believe and what we are showing people in our art. So from there, my questions are, when have you seen art be harmful to a Christian's testimony, and how? And when have you seen art benefit a Christian's testimony, and how? And then the next one is, do you think that it's right to use a neutral symbol or a symbol which speaks against Christian belief to illustrate a principle or a truth? And that's kind of how I'm kind of drawing that into the book, into Asher, and how he used this nude, which was totally against the Jewish beliefs, to illustrate his point, though, or to illustrate the point of how he became and how he increased in his artist ability, and the truth of that, and the principle of that. And then also with the crucifixion, how that painting was against his very belief, but it was the truth of how his mom felt, and it illustrated that point very well. So do you think that we can use those non-Christian kind of art forms to illustrate our points? Is kind of the question, or even neutral symbols. And then the third one is, have you ever had to displease someone to continue to do something you love? Certainly Asher displeased his father on many, many occasions, because his father wanted him to kind of continue working with the Rebbe, and he just went against that, and he wanted to do his art, and that really displeased his father. And also he displeased his father when he drew the painting of the nudes and the crucifixion, but that was something that he loved. I mean, he did love the painting of the crucifixion. He thought it was beautiful, and it moved him, and so he drew that. But it really disappointed his father, and even on several occasions during the book, there was a big rift between Asher's father and Asher because of his art, and his father on several occasions wouldn't even talk to Asher, but he continued in his art anyways, and he could have given up his art, and everything, the relationship between him and his father probably would have been mended, and he loved his father dearly, and he would have done that, but he loved his art, and he wasn't willing to sacrifice his art just to please somebody. So kind of going off of that even, and tying it back to a Christian witness and Christian apologetics, is that, we're going to displease people with our testimonies, and people aren't going to be all excited about it all the time, and we're going to get persecuted. But if we really love Christ and love what we do, we will continue doing it. We will continue sharing Christ with others, and sharing it through art forms, and just how art can be a great testimony to what we believe. So thank you guys for listening, and feel free I would love to hear your questions or your take on the book and the answer to the questions that I posed, and just about this conflict between the arts and the religion, and how it can help our religion, how art can be a booster, or how it can really damage it. So thanks guys for listening.